좋아요. 저 가셔야 될 것이라. 좋아. Sorry. Lama Tsongkhapa states that the sign of generating uncontrived heart of renunciation is you strive for liberation day and night 24/7. And Jeremcheke and Ngejung Jimin Kiavalraban and Chutu Nishu Zapshi Tundra Jilla, Chutu Nishin Yindarish, Chutu Nishu Zapshi, Yinsima Anacheke. Bezunchi Gures, about Taba Dunil, Taba Dunil or give it Jugures. When you generate such a mind, would it be blissful or would there be a sense of urgency about it? Tindreging a Juman Kiosona, any similar Dewaji or Deweg in Yamji or Yangmana, and a Chigita. Urgency na chi gyobo chanaman digmo do samsam chin de ngarjo arba sondo. Would you be more relaxed? Yamani chi ke ta chi lo sing sing de chagi yorba gar sondo.
Dewa tedago me kowe phunzola yimi kijik zami ji. Ninze kunde tawa tuni lo chungna tizingi jungi wala sa lamzo namsong si chungro de jermuchi. Jazan ta didire ni jungi be che ro. Digyong zo lamden ta ni jungi chenyi do tan da di sha yon de ni jungi samba koale ngewa koale tende lo choma mayin ba chila sha yon go ta da jermuchi sha dia 안에 직 타워 되니질로 코베 핀조 통인데 닝부 매비체로 당연히 딜레티시 자위나 띠야고요 코베 핀조 통인데 딜라 닝부 매와 초면 요르지 통 다나 코베 핀조를 닝부 매나 닝부 연료데 가래라 됐다 코발레 타르베 타바드레샤스 타르바데 닌제군데 타워 되니로스 됐다지 과도이나가 타바 토로제나스 되게요 말아 직 레가로지 가르쳐요인데 직 제나 다디 레가 되다 초가요 말에 될래다 타르와야 그래 타르바시 토나야 그래 삼상로데 먼저 저거도디 네 칼라 람살람산 태용 것도 그러 아니 저거도보다 칼라 태 가도이네야 저거도보다 가도이나 칼라 태용도 야 저거도 그 레가에 지기지기 어다 레가데 제올래다 칼라스네야 그래 저거도도 신서던데 다간다 슈슈사디 되는데 네 저거도도 칼라트 이 폴로 베즈메베드네 베즈마 쳬비스 들라 뒤윤다 추직 제도 쫌메기 녀와 세로 쫌메기 녀와 디자 닌저군도 타와 되니 로스디다 거에 자샤로 걸 통한다 다들 연구요 말해야 될래다 타와시 톰나 여그레서 멜로지 나와 슈슈 그 게윤데 디게베 내가 들라 당열라 니중기 로제베 체레스 송두데 야고쇼도 알아. 얘네디 니중세디 계단디 제로무진기 콜린다스나 체샤단디 단다디 직 수지 삼는날 야고샤나 베오요레스데
So this has reference to the three principles of path that Lama Tsongkhapa has written. It is a pit instruction, and in that Nyenzunku to Tapa Dunilo Juna De Tsing Jung Kevala when day and night you have a longing for liberation. At that time, you have generated renunciation. So the word Nyintinkundu, day and night. So that's this one really spells out the measurement or the criterion when one is said to have developed a renunciation. So, so here, first of all, why would some seek liberation rather than be in samsara? That is because all that glitters and all that is seemingly sumptuous affluence has no meaning for that person. For ultimately, it is these very attractive things that that lets one down, and it has happened not once but time and again, and one has kind of that sickening, a sickening feeling towards them. There's no relying on them. There's nothing in them. What has something that's countable, that is that one can count on, and that is liberation, nirvana. So if you have this longing, lingering longing, 24/7 in the heart, day and night, strong yearning for liberation, then that is a measurement. For example, when you are hungry, when you're intensely hungry, hunger drives you, and then you start preparing food and cooking something to overcome your hunger. And in the same way, when we are preoccupied day and night with this, then you could say you have developed Tabadunying law, mind that seeks liberation. Also.
그런다 타바디 니중글로 깨운데 타바 탐대 그 로직 나슈슈게 깨용베이나 아니 셈랑원에다 시바당 대와당 가바틴데 베진 연구열에로 디게 제단데 도스케요나
So I would say if you have developed a genuine gold standard measurement of having developed mind seeking liberation, then ngam shupshuki overwhelmingly of its own accord, you will have some peace, joy, sense of serenity.
다드네 코에 차샤라 삼노단제 닝부메와 통용디 베진다 경면라 칼라 먼저 칼라 사사사나 칼라 사니마르스도 어딘데 신구를 송고다 쭉라나 베나간저 방귀인다 근데 망부사나 간사질라 방귀인 라보다 사니 투면도
방밀로
방귀인
팜킨
아 근데 용도 방귀디 통 거연데 내려 디스 미네 주부주도 사사 잼제 어딘데 칼라직 간저 칼라직 다 견자로야 쇼고데 딘데 차제미도 아니 데델 딘데 차제미도 잠바데 딘데 차제미도 신다 만찰 지사위는 모모래 인데도 모모 사사사나 간사지는 모모 사니마도 차 제가 거에체디 리롱제제디다 동해진장 세용사 다들 처음에서 경면란대에 소리지 어디 대용고여서 디 거에체를 삼는다제 이중계운데 삼로된 데지다 제보문 동해군지고 이데미를 스베 분절라 말에 단다데 단다데 식주요야 단다 거외추 삼로다양되네 쪽 데리다 간다 거외추래야 닝부매와 통해야 되겠다 닝부매와 초매와 봐
Yes.
다 닝부매스다 단다면 교시하고라 단다면은 아주 내가도 지금 말하지 아주 단다 거외추라 동해마 통배치 대화지 데라 초 아니 정면란 거 말아 가지고 가다 쉬지 쉬고 그러라 아니 등에서 그러다 이중매에 세때 따다도 와대.
So for such a person, Kuwait government's samsaric concerns, activities now put them off completely. Like somebody who has eaten a lot is not presented yet again a huge amount of the same food or otherwise. They'll be turned off by that. For example, pumpkin puts me off. For some reason, I have no idea. But potato doesn't. Pumpkin, potato, zamba, roast barley flour,
데들이.
rice and dal, lentil. They don't put me off. However long you eat them, they are satisfying. Whereas momo can put you off. So the long and the short of all this is that samsaric concerns, however fantastic, awesome looking they may be, but knowing at the end they will let you down, and then you have no interest in it, in them at all.
단다 사제 담제 동해 왔을래 송이 데려다 동해란 시 삼로 코마두나나네 자와두지 동해 코웨 코웨 니주 가르이네 사제 동해 오라 동해 덴바로 와셔서 근데 동해 덴바 자와두지 이 동해 딜다 동해 임바시 다나 아주디 시기 와 말해야 돼 자와두지 동해 덴 아주 대화지 단당 아주 대화지야 배는 아주 신다데 인다인 배나 신의 톱두기 대화시도 뒤에 변라 동해래 유르의 동해로 하고 유주고로 하고 사제의 동해로 와 사제의 대화로 와 단당 아주 사제의 대화대 뇽토고요 말해 상매의 대화를 듣는다 통람 톱 사스나는 아니 주와요 말해다 통람 톱 신이 대화들라 다 주와주네 아무라 통람 마도 공기 단당 아주 신의 샤샤나 세워요래 신의 톱나 대화 쉬우지 여러 왔다 간다 류심 신장 대화스도 믹스하게 아니 류단 심닝가라 대화 차와진 쉬우지 기억이 열들래 뒤에 어디 동해를 하시 동화 가르스나 유로 그러고 괜신다 시대도 유르제네 동해 뭐 차로 그래서 유르의 동해스 라고 여러 와쳐서 어디 디르다
So why is somebody put off by all prospects of samsara or concerns of samsara? Because they know that they know it by recalling one of the lines in the four seals of the teaching, the second line, where it says, Sakchatamje, all contaminated, or rather I should say, that contaminated are afflictive. Sakchatamje dungawa. All contaminated phenomena are afflicting or afflictive or suffering. So they know all samsaric things, habitat, inhabitant, all by nature, all in the nature of suffering, especially they are in the nature of the third of three kinds of suffering, very insidious, pervasive suffering of pervasive conditioning, let alone this very aggregate which we have is an example of that. You can argue that the peace one achieves in after fully fledged shamatha, where you have unbounded sense of sensation of a physical and mental bliss and pliancy, even that is contaminated phenomenon, because it is changing. It is is changing and is subject to change. There comes a time when its momentum has ended, it will be no more. The only thing that one can count on is uncontaminated bliss or joy or sukha of on Arya path onwards.
아단당주 니중디 고단된다 디 다삼로 친다 당마 다랑 당시나 아니 코베 자와 통원주 텔레 닝부메와 텔레 텐도지다 텔레테베 타르바지 토고도 삼벨로지 예로굴레나 당 니중게베 체디 세부샤송 디 야고 셴베이나 안저 람세야디 카리메디 다 ton다다다 현사르네.
So to put briefly, if you develop genuine standard renunciation, you have developed a path, and that is one of the spiritual path. Yes.
람게 친이데르와 니중게 삼바 좀 많이 베심바스. 니중게 삼바 단대기 니와죠 코올랑 니와죠 타와 되니길로 좀 많이 바지. 먼저 셈디 신스나나 아니 먼저 셈디 람게 심 당먼저 람나다 람나 슈버다.
So definition of path is that which is that definition of path is that meaning a mind. That which is conjoined or merged with uncontrived or spontaneous renunciation. And if you have developed renunciation, you have lamla shuk, means you have entered or embarked on the path.
That was another.
Total. Can the mind of uncontrived renunciation and bodhicitta be generated simultaneously on the path of accumulation? Mahayana Maya Tabuchimbe Solam Kala and in a joint Janju Semni Dunyam to get to the best. And is it like a buy one, get one free? And it's a Tongan and a Chela chick, I'm free out or Dunyam Drava. Tiganashenta? I'm going to be a son.
The chicken tamer, the Primango yourself.
But you'll be glad to know not one free, but many. You get many free.
Chanjuk sim Julaje and the Karasana Ra Lusravada, Chetijo Simja Tamji, Sanji Gomba, New to Tobachigo, the Sanji Gomba Sadi, called and is on the Shije Numo Divada Tewa Tabaderva. Or de Togudus Lagiota, Sinan Sanje Gombaderva. She loved the Tower to Niles on Daco. She in the Tower to Niles on Prichik dish. A pretty new day. And teaching Lamla Shureda, teaching Lamla Shupa Tunyam, teaching Lamla Shukra, teaching Lamla Yashuzwa. And a Chanju Sembata, Chanju Semba Jevese Charwa, Jese Charwa, Jese Charwa.
So, yes, when you develop bodhicitta, you have also developed renunciation, and that is because when you develop bodhicitta, what is it that you want to achieve? You want to achieve the state of Buddhahood, enlightenment, for the sake of each and every sentient being, and and the state of Buddhahood is the highest liberation. So that enlightenment is at once liberation, and that's free. You work for bodhicitta, you get liberation free. And then you work for bodhicitta, you get part of minor part of accumulation free. You work for bodhicitta, and the status you get as bodhisattva for free. So there are these many things you get for free. Now, and you'll be called Gyavese, the child or the prince or the princess of the Buddha.
Then 산제다 chanju simba 탐제기 다 초보푸세 내차로고라 만나서
And
초보푸다
you have at once become a sublime object of veneration, offering along with the other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
어디리나 아신다 하나
진짜 도는 게 싫나? Is a strong sense of I, if a strong sense of I contributes to depression, and I is and depression depression would this strong sense of I also contribute to people who suffer from bipolar? bipolar 지금 초니여 버리지. 나질로 초니여 버리지. 되는 슈크치데 아니 depression 대반행신 bipolar 요게 메조라 bipolar 태그를 배송도.
그래서 세우치 하고 있어.
라스라. but make anxious and the depression contribute depression to good res 되게는 신기 완전 숙진디 미카셰 바이폴러스는 지기 랑신이로 싫어 갑깔라 기베 예버죠 갑깔라 가서 따가서래 갑깔 야부 예버죠 근데 딜라 겐지를 배송도
대다 영어로 하다 연다 영어로 봐.
I'm sure it does.
니마고 배망고 영어래다.
I think it contributes not only to bipolar, I would say multipolar.
딜라야 나라서 당기시에 봐. 단다 슝진도 마스나지. 아니 레돔치니지 지실렌지지 나실렌지지 벤절렌지지 다도 상업에 탁 보던데 냐냐래 나간다 배미탁 보던데 배지 고용 몸에 된죠 부수도 보던데 냐냐래 했어 세상에 가서 미 부수도 보디 남사하고다고 예시디고나 하고다 부수도 보디 아니 디릭도서 디릭도서라다 anxiety deficient 레야디 도거였다 가즈 부수도 여바 대상 가즈 란진지 숙체와 여바 대상 가즈 단지 숙체와 여바 대상 간삼질라 가시에게 단지들라 누워면 요소를 통제다 그러와 누워 소토야면 요소를 통제다 배 타고 지야디 배 망타제로 망타네 깔레카제네 간삼질라 누워면 요소를 차르데 아니 디비전 독슈디 차로다 간다 야견의 라임에 된죠 저한테 된 요소를 가시에 톱톱라 미규만하지 야 톱돌로 마사로다 다디디고 다 때무야 말아 담면다요 다딜라다
So I believe it contributes to many, and I will go back to my analogy of a system of a government where different departments are held by different ministers, and all of the ministers offer permanent permanent unitary self, self-sufficient self, inherent self, and so on, self-cherishing, and so on. They are very pursuit documents. They're not easy to get on with. They are very uptight. They think very narrowly, and they are not easy to deal with. And because they shut everything out and shut themselves in, and then the uptight feeling becomes stronger and stronger, and then their grasping at self is so strong that it renders the person impotent, as it were, not able to do anything. The person suffers from sense of utter defeatism, not being able to thinking to themselves that they have no capacity for change, for growth. However, of course, there are also people who suffer from a lighter form of this uh, grasping at self, but you know, but oscillating between capacity and incapacity.
먼저 딘뒤치기도 나 미신다 톤데 미디 전부도 나의 정거 말했어. 미디 쇼지하고도 나야고요 말했어. 망보지 딘데스지 심사로다 말어. 야라마도 비치다. 디베진 덴저디 유진다 디프레션 다오다 딘데차게 유진도 쉬지당도 딘뒤치야시도 디인사라도 스타드 딘뒤치야데.
Another thing that a strong sense of I leads to is comparing, making comparison. They are very competent. I'm not. They are so good. I'm not. They're so, and then they see other people in perceived degrees of competence in different field, but when they think themselves, I'm not, and unnecessarily underestimating and then taking away any degree of self-worth causes this kind of a problem.
당저 닝지 첨부 냠내 야고요나 어다 저저 상무 고급지예요 말다 주는.
So I say, if anyone has good, sound compassion, no chance for these to take place for them.
다 딘데로 와서다 닝지 되는 누가 첨부래. 맞아.
So there's no doubt compassion is nupa chembo, very powerful.
다 신다하다.
신다 가지고 계시나. Could Geshe-la explain the difference between self-sufficient, substantially existing self and inherently existing self? They both think they are independent of the aggregates. In this case, it seems if you overcome substantially existing self, you can overcome inherent self. And Geshe-la Toshi si ani karsore rangi tebe zeyu ki ta tang nga rangshun tebe ta ki keba ju soro nang sirwa kuni nige ta choala ane pungbule duen shimba je ta yung dos jay zang di kab dinde yinbe na ani gangsa gangshi ki rangi tebe zeyu tebe tongba tse ani nga rangshun tebe tongba diyan togre be sondo.
데디 케와데 다 도세 곰잡는 메시 지단 치기에 데스터 랍초로 곰잡다 세부 차용 그래서 봐나 지단 디인도용도 당보 란제드베 간산 란제드베 제요코라 컨디질 쓰기 유메디 시행으로 시행에 에너지메 아니 세미나나 샤운데 어디 간산 란제드베 제베스 아니 되네 간산 란게 승리 두어서데 가레스 전다데 시네 에지메 수심네신 어디 간산 란게 승리 두어레스 아니 디니 겨와디 셈나라 만저 셈난 게 철주지래 소소 철나지래 봐고 고 소소 셈나라야 나와 샤오인다지래 공원에지다 요 말아봐 당저 셈나라 롱이도지 룸도지 sö고 요러봐 디소단 셈나 셔고 요러 만저 셈나라 셔고 요러 디 셔두기 셔단데라 멘다 요다 다 세우시지래 당일라 당보 뭐나 간사란 제드베 제유기 봉불에 텐션디 따단데 카레스 지글랍 당연히 지글랍샤나 안데네 랑은에 두베게 풍불에 텐션 따단데 카레 디니 겨와데 카레스로 독스자미나 데셰데 세부차몽에 다데 내가 전부 내가 전부를 에스티.
So this is Naga Chamber means it's called important question, and its real import cannot be gauged until after successful prolonged successful meditation. But we can still verbalize about them. We can talk about them. So what at the cognition, what we need to do is we need to see for ourselves what it means to develop self or awareness, or rather ignorance or distortion of self-sufficient, substantially existing self. What happens? What is it like when it happens to the mind? And then what happens to the mind when one develops, when the second subtle self of inherent existence appears to it? So neither of them, of course, in reality exists. Both of them are mental projections for different degrees. So let me first talk about the first one, and then what happens, in what way rather SSSE appears to us.
제가 한국 란제드베 제유세야데 당에 그 진이당 돈다마셔 지금 저 셈나라 차단데 라고로.
So I'm not going to be technical about saying this is the definition, but I'm going to talk about a similar chartang, how it appears to the mind.
베나 란제드베 제유딩은 저 셈나라 차려인데 풍불에 수국 풍부 강바다 라고다 닝다 대달레 된 셴베 아니 될래야 원주어부터베시 대 차주지 요르 다가나래 다가샤나 다갈 셈나는 거였으나 다가나래다 디지나 아란제드베 제유진바 디민두 삼나 디메타 디데 자자 민두스 타초운데 아니 디민두스 테바 동아도나 란제드베 제유 동아도고라 간다 제단 당보되지 그러와 nga keji shigi nga gomja gi insa nga de khandes to ta yin de phongbule thyen shin bi mik gyu de mik gor samma log di yin theng gyor dang le de nam sha da nga keji shigi nga gomja gi sini di yin ba da mik ba de la mik yor wa ina ya number of the sha yon de ta di khandes to si lo de ma de ting sa ro do ra thang bo hob de ga de nga keji shigi nga gomja gi sta na mi sang me la gre lob jon chin yin ma chin yin sang me dang zo lob jon chin yin ji ge ta ting ma sa ro dang de 하대원은 대 간대징에 건지 지금도 삼당한데 셈날 샤려운데 풍불라 당보디 제신들랍션데 그러 풍불에 된신배 풍불라 완주어부터비지 된대지 나와샤 나디 디르샤스티 나디 디르샤스 나와시 딜 이지 체스나나 덴버도 진사다 덴버도 말 나란제데 제유디 짐바레 다디 삼마 띵서로 당데 디민두 다 디민두 삼제 디메바 디제니 머니와 다가라는 삼다는 야도다 신나데 디가라제니 디더 자자 자민두 삼 타초인데 당부 이주 점지 과니 아니 신도 심나라 뱅예신이네 당도 직배 심나라 예신 체메 또버 타용데 아니 신도 간사랑제도 제이 다 동아사디 또버데 수딘도 또버스나 마케팅 또버다 단위대와 나디 띵디 또 띵디 나디 풍불에 텐심에 다 요마레 매버디 매버이 하고 버다 간다 치스 먼저 단다 하고 고요 말어 어디 내가 지그레스로 당부디.
So shakti means when it appears to the mind, you say my hand, my feet, my heart, or I'm talking, I'm meditating. So immediately that I, which one has expressed in different to do or express as doing, as being something, doing something, is seen as different from the aggregate, different from any of the aggregate it makes reference to. It considers aggregate as one thing, I am something else, and therefore thus it sees the aggregate as being different, and it appears to itself that it is different from aggregate, or aggregates are different from it. And if it believes to that, then one is grasping at SSSE, myself. And when you realize, in fact, it doesn't exist, then there and then you have realized its emptiness. So, as I have said, for instance, when you say, I'm talking, I'm meditating, at that time, one is making reference to nominal I that appears. One makes reference to nominal I. Nominal I appears, and then number means what it is believed to be. Number should when for all people, educated, non-educated, in these matters, let's say, when they say I'm meditating, I'm talking, and that I is a nominal I, or the I that appears to I is a nominal I. Number means how it is seen when they think carefully. It seems to be that that nominal I is taken to be. Number means cognitively, it's taken to be different from any of the aggregates or body parts or mind parts involved in the activity it is talking about. It is seen as different from aggregate, number one. Number two, it is seen as something that controls that which it relies on to perform its function, one givable. So, when you have, after that, when you go beneath reading the nominal I to be different from aggregates, as being controller of aggregates. If you go beyond that, beneath that, deeper, when you look carefully at it, and then when you come to wow, it doesn't exist. I thought it was so there. And thing means right from deep down, when you have a startling awareness that it doesn't exist at all, and you look for it, you look for it everywhere, and you cannot find it. And when you come to realize it doesn't exist at all, 100% sense of certitude. In the beginning, it will be kind of presumptuous knowledge. Next, it will become inferential knowledge, and gradually it will lead to direct understanding of emptiness of SSSE. And so, where is emptiness of SSSE located? It is located on the nominal I.
세상 나 딜라 삼론나는 샤연지 파 풍불의 ten심에 풍불로 파왕 중이 소시 semnal shargyor ta di nenga chambore ta di gi peje yawa chedo gore samno di khwaya go chawi na ranje de je gi ta di 풍불의 ten심에 풍불로 파왕 중이 소시 ta 안주 pomboji gi yogolo 파왕 줄 거 봐고 봐 파왕 중이 소시 텐데지 semnala 먼저 차단디 다 요르당하는 디 무엇은 디고다
A key feature of this SSSE is not only does it appear to be different from aggregates or body parts, rather, or it also Parwang means somebody who rules over them, kind of giving us a spatial dimension of separation between the two, whereas self-sufficient self almost is above the aggregates doing hard work.
다드네 가서 랑원에 투와 다 디 상당히 찍고는 랑원에 투라고도
랑원 좀
당아 상당히 야 풍부 당 데메게 풍부다 전시다디 전시보다 데메 됐습니다 요라 데메게 다도 상당히 하시래 수줍된 것이로 수줍지 풍부기네 풍불라 떼메게 다 풍불라 떼메게 야자자다 한바 풍부기네 수줍지 된 것이 다디 저도서
라 떼메게 풍쯤네 줘봐라
풍부sem네 수줍지 야자자다 한바 수줍된 것으로 나와샤
네 수줍. Now let me give some key or rather differentiating attribute of subtle self of a person or subtle self of self, subtle self of self. And now this self appears rang means from one's own. Ne means from one's own. Drupa means being or existing from its own side. So when you think of I, unlike SSSE, this appears existing independently and existing independently from within the aggregate. That's the key.
다 kunyi chabade dene dore. Chabade dinde jigla chana. Sidan des de yorta me tage tigre. Ranje de zeye de pa wang ju nisre nawasha. Rangwen de de yu khurang ngone chu jaja jadamba tuwe sorji. Nawasha yonde tinyi da menda chasang bet.
So there's a clear difference, isn't there, with the SSSE self? There is a sort of spatial difference where sufficiently existing self controls rules from above or over them, whereas inherent self feels like it exists almost inseparably one with the aggregate and existing from within the aggregate independently.
다디 네 간사랑원에 두가디 네 나와샤된 조디 나와샤오 다가랑 제니 제제제나 랑원에 두가 자자자도버지 요마레 먼저 단다 꼼자기 인상하디 풍부의 ten심에 자자자담바 유중원에 주 하나 되매지 유중원에 두어치 semnal shargyor sharbade zina ane danzi kansa danzi thamore tadi ane dime yudita kosane de na migba deta tanye de nga de mikiyoro ya nawa shayonde 어디 나와도 샤지 샤워디다 짐버바 지나 간사단지 차서 다디 제고로 다디 거네 유다메 제운디 이에요 말에 유나 니 랑원에 두어디 유나 직 야메나 드마데요 다디 뒤에 삼당도 요래 다 단위 대회 가디 네 풍불라 떼네 두고도 아스로 가상 신이 코나 가르샤운데 다시 부모하고 가르라 떼네 다고서 아니 가서야디 파말라 떼네 총아 땅아서 준대게 된지 그래서 다 땡땡이 균제기 동방이 그래서 다들 다들 네 아니 가서래 나디 아니 규jen라 되네 총아 차셰라 되네 총아 아니 타마들라 아니 똑배 파다고 똑배 파 싱기 파 딱잠지리 슬라비언디 다 당연히 심나라 샤든 저디 심글라 도메 유중원에 자자자도 같이 민도가 최대 삼 똑배 파 파다잠레도가 삼삼 다연디 아니 거기다 난gel레용으로 angwene 주데다 심기 차나데니 라마토 차는데 아니 다디 민두스 다디 제제니 니에 민두스 삼다운데 아니 딘데마니바 다가람 디카베 캑자 다가람 캑보 똥 다디 nga 랑원에 주베 똥웨 똥바 다가람 딜라 간사 다음에 똥바니 간사 다음에 참모래 다 tenjuelo 동반이 가자 찍어지 야래 랑원에 두바디 까고로 어딜라다 가사 다음에 참모 샤용고로 또 연뒤 두 시작으로다
So, what we need to do, like in the previous cases, our under the influence of ignorance, we can't help sensing inherent I existing independently from within the aggregates. And it's quite important for us to feel, to have a clear appearance of such an I. As I had you have an appearance of SSSE here too, it's important that we are able to grasp or grab that appearance. And then, unfortunately, if one believed the appearance is true, it would amount to grasping at inherent existence. If one didn't, then it would be just appearance without grasping. So, here too, when one looks at inherent existence of inherently existing I, actually, as a matter of fact, one is observing the focal object is nominal I, but the number, the reading, or the number or the aspect or how it is seen is seen as existing inherently as given above from within the aggregates. So if it exists, now it should be findable. Anything that exists is findable sometime. Okay, if it exists, how does it exist? Does it exist by being single or by being multiple? And these two lines of reasoning, singularity and plurality, or the sameness or difference, is very important reasoning. So it doesn't exist inherently one as inherently one with the aggregates, or as being multiple from or different from the aggregates. So, and if you it exists dependently. It exists dependently because the definition of person is I, that is labeled dependently, that is merely labeled dependently on on one of the aggregates. So that is the correct state of affairs, or the correct state of being of I. And that the correct state of being is it exists by being labeled dependently on the aggregates. So it depends. So the I depends in three ways. I depends on causes and conditions because you know I depends on the many causes and conditions that have given rise to I. Secondly, I depends on its parts, namely aggregates and so on. Aggregates are parts of the whole I, and therefore the entity I cannot be should parts be not there. What it means is it has necessary dependence. And there, okay. Thirdly, uh, I I doesn't exist inherently somewhere among the aggregates, uh, inherently from within the aggregate. Rather, I is Tokpe means I is merely labeled externally onto the collection of aggregates. Tokpe Partasam. So given this critical criterion or criteria of I's dependence on causes, on parts, on the naming, on the naming conceptual designation, or on naming concept, I cannot be inherent, because anything that depends on anything else has ceases to be independent and inherent, existing from their own side. Their existence is entirely dependent on. So then, having had a clear appearance of appreciation of the appearance of supposed inherent I, and then when you look for it against the backdrop of these lines of reasoning, then the many means when you look for it, when you look for it, when you look for it through the three modes of dependent arising reasoning: cause, parts, conceptual designation. When you look for in many ways, none of this reasoning, individually or collectively, certify that I exist independently. Rather, the I is empty of inherent nature of being. In, in, I is empty of inherent existence. And if you see, or when you find the I is not findable, the inherent I is not visible, not findable under correct analysis, that findability is the absence of inherent I, and that is the view of subtle selflessness of person.
다드네 가사란제 되게 제기 동원도는 가사랑원에 두고 동원 도그르베스라로 다디 도고 말레스 좀제 갈라나 가사란제 되게 제기 동원도 연디 풍불에 텐시 풍불로 파원 주니집 요 말레스네 디도서 대zam직 리브레다
맞아.
이나 파원 주니데 요 말레들레 코란 그런 원에 수두든 이제 요래신 하루도 되러
No, sir.
제대로 하기도 하다 제선 되게 아니 또 두고 매번이 다가랑 그다 단대 찬난디 간에 다 룹투 그래 다간다
So the one of the part of the question was, does understanding of selflessness of or emptiness of SSSE equate with understanding of understanding of emptiness of inherent existence? No. No, because when you understand the first, you understand that there's no such thing as an entity called SSSE that is different and that controls over somewhere some part or its subjects. So when you understand this, when you understand emptiness of this, it doesn't lead immediately to or equate with understanding emptiness of existing from their own side, because according to the second self of person is existing from its own side. Not that something rules over it, it exists from its own side. So when you rule out aggregates having a control over an as self-sufficient I controlling over it, it doesn't automatically lead to the fact that it is empty of being in itself.
다디 란저트베 제나 라문에 투에 통보 다게 다도 투베디 유 다서를 가자로 아닌가로 가자 주상마다 유지 가자세요 유지 가자로 유지 가자들라 돈이기 유지 가자들라 매워시 거래라 요나 가미니 외치스데 제로모치 디나라 당도치면은 내송이라 아니 가자디 시절에 미시베지 거래시 요나 가미니 외치사데 유지 가자로 찾아단다디 유지 가자 셰빈자 요 말다 이나 언제 생게 똑베게 찬나라 용구요래 바자고 안기다 겨왕하면에 바자망고 요인자 나와디 요르당도 요인자 게 인짐지야 사와 소고야 요 말에 알아서 잘라도 마스나 뭐시면서 알아서 요르다 나와디 요르 낭주디 요르 요와디야 뭐시나 아니 다게 되어래 세상 가정 문진식도 가정 문진식 어디 딱 곰 잡다 아니 상로망보 땅 곰망보 잡다 하고 그랬지로
So, and here we have been talking about self-sufficient, substantially existing self and inherently existing self. So these two are gagja, negatees of different degrees of subtlety. These are called gagja or objects of negation. And so these are also called yuga gagja. Okay, yuga gagja means negati, or I'm going to say object negati, not subject negati. Yuga gagja means things to be negated in objects, in things, in phenomena. So object negated, according to Jamkun Lama Tsongkhapa, object negated is something that is utter impossibility in the domain or sphere of a phenomena. Nothing. Object of negati, these two negaties, impossibles, impossible existence. They don't exist. That's what is schedule and misiba. If it is an object of, if it is an object negati, it is utter impossibility. Its only possible, its only possible, its only existence is in ignorance, in the ignorance where, due to predispositions of the view of self across many lifetimes, um, these two are embedded, as it were, encoded onto the mind. In reality, in things themselves, they, uh, they, are, they do not have these. So, what is important, as I have been stressing time and again, Sabha Soga Maram, you don't need to make things anew. You don't need to redefine object of negation and then end up remodifying it. You don't need to. We need to identify it as is. And something, and how can we know it, identify it as is? By samlutang means by reflection, meditation.
Oh yeah. Ta de xiao ro.
Shall we stop here?
These vineyards of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha, and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel Vadi Sita that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. May the precious seal of emptiness that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Whatever supply positive potential I may have created, by paying homage, offering, and acknowledging my faults, rejoicing and requesting that the Buddha stay in peace. I now dedicate all this for full awakening.
Two this shield. My sum.